I guess the theme of our last Crimes After Dark was other content creators. We spent a lot of time talking about other channels, Pavorotti, and some of the new creators that are out there in the Idaho 4 space. We spent a lot of time talking about them as well. And so today's Fireside chat will focus a lot on other creators' opinions and how to treat one another. Let's get into our Fireside chat, the comments that we didn't 100% address, or maybe just the highlights of the evening. In this breakdown, our Fireside chat, this is where I address those comments and questions that we didn't have time to fully address, or I had additional thoughts that weren't addressed by the panel. The devil's in the details. Let's get into this. This user caught my attention, Rick Allen 5204. Hello from Leeds, England, UK. And I wanted to shout this out. One, I love that we have in an international audience. And I encourage you all the time to let me know where you're calling in from. So again, this was cool seeing from Leeds, England. But then I was like, Rick Allen from the UK. Why does that sound familiar? It took me back to my 20s when I would watch Def Leppard and Rick Allen, the drummer, and from the UK. You know, Def Leppard had the British flag, and I was like, oh my gosh, Rick Allen from the UK. It was funny because there was a part of me that was like, no, it couldn't be. And no, Def Leppard actually, from what I understand, is actually doing what do they call that? Some kind of rotation in Las Vegas right now. So they're not right now in Leeds, England. But Rick Allen, your name gave me a smile. And then it was followed by another comment shortly afterwards, which I think we're going to pin next. That was like, could it be? No, I'm sure you're not, but it was a cool name. Def Leppard was cool. I loved Def Leppard. So Donna 7 of 9 followed up with adrenaline is pumping from a gig in the UK and can't sleep. So I thought I'd join. And I'm like, wait a minute, Rick Allen, musician, UK, and then somebody else right afterwards talking about their adrenaline is pumping from a gig. Say it's not true. I'm sure it's not. Again, Def Leppard's in Las Vegas, but it just, that whole like chain was very cool. So thanks again to our UK audience. It brought me back memories, a lot of memories. I think I saw Def Leppard twice in concert, by the way. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yvonne Pool 141, 49 degrees here in Southeast Louisiana. And I just wanted to say thank you. We had a lot of people. It was great. I always encourage people to tell me where they're coming in from. We had a lot of people from the US telling their temperatures, not only their location, but their temperatures from all around the world. And it was a very cool moment. So just wanted to use that as an example to say, thank you guys. Please do that. I love it when I know where you're calling in from and you know, the weather in your local area. It actually is intriguing to me. I don't know why. It's just a thing. So keep that up. Sarah Gentry 7757 says, hello, DA. 1, if you lift your leg 2, you are better than me. LOL. Now, what does that mean? So cryptic if you weren't there. There was a hilarious moment on our show where our law enforcement resident panelist, was saying that it's very, very cold in New York where he's at, and his dog won't go pee unless he literally goes out with the dog and pees with them. That's kind of what he said. I was stunned that he said it. Like, not just I have to walk out with my dog, but I have to like demonstrate for him that it's okay to pee. So that threw the whole panel off. We spent some time laughing. Dago couldn't really recover from that moment. It was a lot of fun. And I think I'm going to have another pinned comment from Dago's chat. So I'll comment more on that in a minute. But that's what that's about. It was worth it. You need to come to the shows. We're kind of off the hook sometimes. A lot adult humor, a lot of inappropriate things. We are definitely going to say something from time to time that you're going to be like, oh, that wasn't appropriate. Well, that's just our show. Oh, by the way, before I get too far, let's put in the parental advisory in the corner. There you go. Hopefully that points the right way. Anyways, parental advisory in the corner. All right. All right, Phyllis PGVB, the True Crime Cafe with Dago. Ask if 1-1 drags his ass clean on the carpet, as training demonstrations, of course. So yes, that I told you we're going to have another comment. I didn't realize I had it that close together. We talked about the boot scooting. This we just ran off on and we could not recover. It seemed like for a while of imagining one out there peeing with his dog, lifting the leg to demonstrate peeing on a tree, and dragging his ass across the carpet or the grass or whatever to boot scoot. Anyways, so thanks for the humor. This came from Dago's side of the chat, it looks like. But normally I would love to have one himself address these comments but that's for the future. We'll get to the point where my panelists can answer some of these questions. Sorry, I'm yawning. It's late at night when I do these sometimes. Seahawks fan 72 says, and this is from, I think, Dago's channel. We don't bash other creators. Yes, we have opinions, but we keep the drama out of here. And so this was a big theme of the night. We talked a lot about a very, very spicy video that many people had just seen that today from Pavorotti, Jay Embry, who went off the rails, yelling and shouting and angry about other piece of trash creators who he can't respect and won't have any part of and doesn't want. And it got hard listening to that because you weren't sure exactly who Pavorotti was addressing. It almost kind of sounded to me like it was anybody that doesn't necessarily agree with you is a piece of trash. But I don't think that's how Pavorotti thinks, to be fair. And I will say it a lot during this show. Pavorotti, I think, is a really smart guy. His fans are maybe a little over rabid sometimes, but he's a really smart guy. I respect what he does. I don't agree with everything he says. I hope that he's okay with that. I've had nothing but respect for Pavorotti. And the theme of the night was we don't bash other creators. So thank you, Seahawks fan, for doing that. We had a person come up on stream, I think Phoenix Rising. Maybe I have a comment pinned from her. We'll talk about it some more. They came up and gave an impassioned speech about respecting other creators, even if you don't agree with their opinions. Fizzy Cake says, again, this is maybe from Dago's chat. Whoa, the singer from Three Doors Down died, Dago. Oh, yes, I forgot. That did happen during the show, and I was very upset to find that out. I didn't see it during the chat, but when I went back and I saw it in my replay and I was getting to prepare this, I was like, oh my God, did that really happen? Yes, just today during our show. Well, not necessarily during our show, but the date of our show, February 7th, 2026, at the age of 47. I'm reading this off the screen. Three Doors Down lead singer Brad Arnold has died. He passed away after battling stage 4 kidney cancer that had spread to his lungs. And so it was a sad thing. Many of us really liked Three Doors Down. There was some chats and some condolences and some lyrics flying around from Kryptonite and other parts of Three Doors Down songs. And so sad day for those who just sad day for in general for that kind of thing. It's never a good thing to lose somebody that has meant so much to our lives, and their music has touched so many people. So thanks. And then Phoenix Rising, who I said again came on screen to give an impassioned speech about treating others with respect. She addressed him. You're a cop. Have you ever personally dealt with a case like this? And if so, what was the outcome? Now, here's the problem, and I want to address this right now. We need to move eventually towards this idea of having you be able to, and I've encouraged you to ask our panelists questions for them to do exactly what I'm doing right now. But this whole format and StreamYard and the layout and the way I'm doing it will probably be different for them. But I do have panelists like One who can use my StreamYard account to create responses, and he probably used the layout that I've created. So we need to work that out. It's going to take time. We do want to move to a point where you can actually ask our panelists questions, and if they missed it during the chat, you'll be able to have a chance to have them answer just like this in a Fireside chat response. So we're moving in that direction. It's going to be a while. So thanks for asking, and keep it up, because I'm going to try to get those saved. I might even save this aside if it's enough information to prompt us when it comes time for him to do it, that we know what the context was. All right, from Phoenix Rising 214 again, if you guys take calls tonight, I have more of a statement than a question. And this is where I want to remind you, yes, Phoenix Rising did come up on stage. And we really, really encourage people to take that option to come up on stage. Some people say, why don't you do a call-in like other shows do? We do. We've tried to get people to join us on stage, but a lot of times people don't take us up on the offer, and then it feels like we're begging people to come on stage, and that doesn't feel right either. I don't like to beg anybody for anything. So if you want to come up, we'd like to extend the offer, but not everybody does. And some nights, like tonight, somebody actually asked to come up on stage and we missed them. Holy shit. Like sometimes we can't twist somebody's arm to come up on stage. And tonight we had 3 or 4 people come up on stage. Phoenix Rising came up, Against Defense Res came up, and then we missed one. So that's unfortunate. But yes, please keep that up. We love it. And thank you, by the way, for giving your speech. It was great. Now, Beach Babe 0614 says it's a whopping 5 degrees in New Jersey right now. Holy shit. So yes, thank you again. As a reminder, love hearing where you're from. Love hearing the temperatures even when we're having some kind of special cold snap. And it's colder than dog piss out there. This is New York where one was at, was talking about the same thing, pea and icicles. It's colder than shit over there. So thanks for letting us know how things are in your neck of the woods. Stay safe, keep the animals inside, all those good things. To keep the animals inside thing is also a help for Logan from Bronx Tales. She's always ending about, be kind to your animals. I'm also a super animal lover. I don't usually say it a lot. So that was kind of a tribute to Logan, who's not here tonight. Marissa Rivette, YC6FY. I made it, DA. That's amazeballs. Congratulations. I see you, Marissa. Thank you very much for joining. I don't know if that means it's your first live that you've been to, or you keep trying to make them and you can't make it, whatever the case may be. It sounds like you made it to a live, and I'm super, super happy that you did. Thank you for joining and watching the live. It means a lot to us when you watch live. It helps the algorithm knowing that people tune in and watch when we're live, and also on the replay. So if you're out there and you're watching on the replay, thank you so much. All of those watch time hours count towards us building a thing here. So Marissa, glad you made it. By the way, when you are new to the live and you get there, I try to focus on making those people watched by my mods, so that if they ask a question, we get to your question. Because especially if you're only there every once in a blue moon, or it's the first time, we want to try to give you a chance to say something that you've wanted to say, or get a question that you wanted answered out. So if you're new, let us know you're new, kind of like this. I don't know if she's actually saying she's new, but if you are new, let us know you're new. And then if you want to have a question, we'll try to get it up on screen and talk about it. Row I4G says, thank you, Phoenix Rising. You are 100% right. This is, again, after Phoenix Rising took the stage, she gave an impassioned plea for treating each other with respect as creators and agreeing to disagree, because we're all fundamentally working towards the same thing. We just want to know what happened. And while we are sharing ideas and thoughts, and we question each other and we critique each other's work and say, I think you're wrong about this, whatever, that shouldn't be seen as a negative. Me telling a content creator I disagree with your conclusion shouldn't be seen as an insult. You likewise telling me that you disagree with one of my conclusions shouldn't be seen as an insult. I think my mother told me, or maybe it wasn't my mother, somebody told me a piece of advice that I've learned, which is that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. If you're good at how you say things, you can tell somebody anything, including, I'm sorry to tell you, unfortunately, but you're not going to survive this event. And you can tell somebody they're about to die, and they will handle it well if you say it with dignity and respect and do it right. But saying things like an asshole will immediately turn you off. So yes, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Please be kind and respectful to other creators when you disagree with them, especially. Be kind and understand that we're all marching towards the same goal, which is to understand what happened. And coming up with a theory and asking questions, hey, is this true, shouldn't be responded with, you're a fucking idiot for asking that question. Never should we treat people like that, in my opinion. Gurmila, I hope they pronounced that right. Gurmila says, I liked the Epstein coverage. I've known about it, but not in depth with being exposed to more people's take on it. So I had apologized in the early part of this meeting, because the one before, we had attorney John Ray give an announcement, a press release about being involved or being shown in the Epstein files, not in a bad way. He was actually shown in the Epstein files in a good way, as somebody who had reported on sex trafficking, and it was ignored, and that shows up in the Epstein files. So if you're going to end up in Epstein's files, that's the way to do it. But anyways, this person actually was, I said, hey, I'm sorry we spent so much time last Crimes After Dark, talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And this is them saying, hey, well, I liked the Epstein coverage. Sometimes it can't be all about Idaho 4. We spent a great portion of the night talking about an opportunity that we had to get attorney John Ray Esquire Actually, that's kind of a redundant thing. The attorney and the Esquire thing pretty much say the same thing. John Ray Esquire, attorney at law, came on after his press release and talked to us on channel. He's a super cool guy. Very, very, very cool. You need to check that out. And my other interviews with John Ray. So thanks. Foxy Rose OU8HL. I want to try to come up, please, for one question. Can I? I am sorry we missed this. I don't even see a mod that said, hey, here's the link. Yes, come backstage. So I don't know how we all missed it tonight. Apparently we did all miss it tonight. Or I don't know. Is there a history I don't know about? And I don't know. But I don't believe we intentionally not invite people up unless something horrible has happened in the past, which is a small list, and I usually know who those people are, so I don't think it's you. So apologies. We do want people to join us on stage. I don't know how we missed this. Please forgive us and try again. Maybe not Sunday nights, because that's when they're covering a different case and it's not the same show. But when I'm on there, please try it again. I'll try to make sure to catch you next time. All right, I want to take a minute, and I don't put this at the very beginning, because I think people will check out. They're like, I'm bored. And so I kind of do this. It doesn't mean it should be delegated to this part in this thing, but I want to take a moment to thank all of the supporters who financially supported my channel and the channels of those who go on my panel. So first of all, legendary CEO became a new member, I think, on Dago's channel after watching him on the stream tonight. So that was amazing. Thanks for that. Amanda B gifted a membership to our people on our side. Thank you, Amanda. She's one of my mods and one of my back scenes slaves. Not slave, but you know what I'm saying. We work her a lot. Amanda gifted a membership. Bianca Jane gifted a membership to our side. Amanda gifted another membership to our side. Thank you guys for giving those memberships out and giving people an opportunity to get a freebie. And then we had this $19.99 $20 gift that came in from F Off. I'm glad that Dago told me how to pronounce it. F Off. And they said that I'll contribute to that experiment. I'll hold off on explaining what experiment they're talking about, but I like it when you guys tell me specifically you're contributing to this. So it's either the whole channel. I'm always assuming you're contributing to the channel, but sometimes you're contributing to a cause. And this was a particular experiment that came up during the night. We'll talk about that when we get to it later. Thank you so much for the support. One more of the gifts, and then we'll move back into Idaho 4, I think is where we're going next. We're going to go to Idaho 4 for the rest of this video. The questions for the audience. This is from Resist the Woke, another $5 donation, another great live stream. Thank you, Lee, panel, and chat. Y'all have a good weekend. Thank you again very much, all of you. So I wanted to make sure we highlighted the people who gifted money to the show. It means a lot. It actually pays the bills. We run negative all the time. We're not making money. We run negative in this channel, including, by the way, me having this new camera that you're watching right now. If you think it looks sharper, it is. It is much sharper. It's a different camera, completely different setup. I had to rearrange my studio, but it's part of the way where you're like, hey, we need to improve a little piece of this, and your donations helped us improve that. It's part of the business expenses, and so we're going negative doing that kind of stuff. But hey, in the end, hopefully it will all pay off and pay the bills, including the people who are helping support us. But that's a long ways off. So thanks for all you do and your support. All right, Idaho 4 for the rest of the night. All right, Donna 7 of 9. Again, we had this user earlier. At 11, did you manage to take a look at the NPD report 77 yet? Yes. So I realized you're addressing 11, and I realize why, because he's NYPD, as one of the reasons why, at least, and you wanted his perspective from a law officer, what he thought about that, and to use follow-on questions. So Donna, I'm sorry to say 11's not going to answer this one directly, but I will say that yes. First of all, let me tell you this. 11 was the one who said that, oh my gosh, we need to talk about report number 77. He told me that today. When he started to explain to me why we should talk about it, I said, wait a minute, I've talked about this already. And yes, I did hours and hours and hours of the MPD reports, like 350 reports that they did. This is report number 77. And so when I reminded him, I'm like, hey, isn't that where I went on that big rant about the guy that had the knife and threatened that he could have killed all those kids, and that he'd been into the house before and they didn't even know he was there, and that kind of, like, all that crazy shit they said, and the theory. I feel like I'm going to do this early. I can't remember if we cover it again, so I'm do I cover it again? Anyways, the theory. I'm going to do it now, I guess, and I'll just be short if I have another slide on it. That this individual who was in the reports, heavily redacted, was younger than Brian Koberger, so it's not Brian Koberger, and he had a history. And this is the kicker. If you haven't heard this story, buckle the fuck up for a minute. I went on a rant on this 6 months ago. I looked it up 6 months ago. I went on a rant on this when I read about it in the documents, because this individual, it was documented by the police that this individual had people complaining about a guy who was a young ROTC guy, redacted name, who liked to go around showing his knives. He had a collection of knives, and he would hide knives in wood piles and sheds. And he had a very strange, peculiar history. He had an abusive mother, it sounded like, or at least a mother that yelled at him a lot and maybe made him feel a certain kind of way. And he would get angry and he would disappear for hours and not come back until the early mornings after being yelled at. There was an encounter, they talked about his mother, I think it was his mother, pretty certain, had yelled at him and made him feel whatever, and he took off and left and didn't come back until the early mornings. When he would go for these walks, he would go to the college campus, another oddity. And I said at the time, he blamed, it's in the report, he blamed the university for his mother being raped and maybe turned to drugs and other things. He had a beef against the university for what happened to his mother. And then he got in fights with his mother, and he would maybe feel, this was not in the report, I'm reading something into it, maybe feel belittled and angry at his mother. And this is what I would say is an MO of a serial killer, a man who loves his mother, and is angry at his mother, but he can't kill his mother. He doesn't. So there's that respect. I can't kill mother, so I'll go out and kill somebody that represents my mother, right? Or some other person that becomes the focus of my rage and my anger, because I can't kill my own mother, so I'll take it out on people like that. And I realize that's a stretch, but when you factor in all the other things, including the shocker moment when it was in the report that this individual had gone to the Mad Greek restaurant and had an encounter with Maddie and Xana and Ethan, in which he got into a fight with them, political type fight, harassing them about maybe liberalism or something like that. I can't remember. And it was documented that it was an awkward moment, a fight that took place in the restaurant, and it was heated. And it seemed that this individual who carries knives around and likes to brag about knives and how quickly and easily he can kill people and how he can get into their houses and be inside their house and they never knew he was there. That individual who also snuck up on people and just appeared out of nowhere, that was in the report as well. He was like a ninja, he just show up out of nowhere. That individual is heavily documented and had a run-in with Xana and Ethan and Maddie. And again, here comes Steve Gonzalez later to say, look, I don't think Kaylee was the target. It might have been somebody else, and maybe Maddie was one of them. Well, Ethan, Xana, and Maddie had a run-in with this individual who bragged about how easy it is for him to kill people and how he could get into their house and they wouldn't even know that he was there, and had a run-in with them. So as I joked 6 months ago, gee, I hope, Stephen Hippler, that this wasn't one of your alternative suspects, because I'm sure you don't think that was an alternative suspect. I'm sure you, with the way you handled this case, didn't think that kind of person was an alternative suspect. I think he is. And so anyways, it's resurfaced, I guess, and I haven't seen this. It resurfaced, I guess, because new video footage, maybe, of the interview has come out, and so people are seeing it on camera for the first time. I did not see it. I guess it's an hour and 20 minutes from what I've been told, but I have read the document about it, so I haven't seen it. Maybe I will get a chance to watch it, but I'm going on vacation, so I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to watch it. But that's what we talked about ad nauseum. Sorry, Donna, that you didn't get a chance to ask one directly, or that he didn't address that directly, but we did talk about it quite a bit. I hope you got your questions answered on that. As I like to joke with this user, something like that, pronouncing that name JP, we'll just call him for short, or her. Is it female, male? I can't remember. JP. Anyways, we covered, I don't even remember now all of a sudden. It's not that I don't remember, it's like I don't know if I've ever known. Anyways, we covered 77 months ago. The issues was that we had very little details at the time guessing who GM was. That's another follow-on to the whole that individual we just talked about just a second ago, and it wasn't 77 months ago. I believe that's a typo. I covered it 6 months ago. Maybe somebody else covered it 7 months ago, and maybe it was just a guess on how long ago it was. But I think that they meant 7 months ago, not 77 months ago. So yeah, more follow-up. Thank you very much for that. I hope that you're saying you remember me covering it, just because some people on my side were like, "Hey, have you heard this shocking news?" And I'm like, "Why does that not sound shocking? I feel like I've covered that in detail." And I even went on a huge rant about how important. I even said 6 months ago, this is fucking huge, people. This is fucking huge. And now it's resurfacing as the body camera footage come out. And the last thing I have to say about that is Jesus. Sorry, I don't mean to offend those who have a Christian persuasion and don't like those kind of things. I don't mean to drop that so much, even though I do the F-bomb, and I don't apologize for that all the time. The point being is that I said at the time it was a big, big deal. And now it's coming out. And if it wasn't for the fact that they just keep dropping new stuff every single day, dropping new stuff, we wouldn't have to keep this case alive going, what the fuck? How did you do that? How did you guys know about this guy? And you didn't follow up on it. So for a lot of people, you're seeing it for the first time. And they're doing themselves a disservice because they gagged this for so long that now as it's coming out through public records requests, people are losing their Evan Lovin minds, and they should. Yvonne Poole 141, I think we had another question from them earlier. The biggest or the newest Gilter thing I heard is that Brian had fog lamps, but bought covers to conceal them after the crime. LOL. Oh my God. Like, if you ever watch Dago, just mention to Dago True Crime True Crime Cafe, mention to Dago, Brian Koberger, by the way, had clip-on fog lights. And watch his reaction. He'll lose his shit. But now they're saying, no, Brian Koberger did have fog lights on his vehicle, and he just covered them up after the crime. What we're talking about is suspect vehicle 1 and several photos that they have labeled, they meaning the prosecution, FBI, and so on, has labeled as suspect vehicle 1, the one that went to the murder scene and committed the murders, had fog lights, and yet Brian Koberger's vehicle did not have fog lights. Therefore, many people have concluded that vehicle that they're saying is Brian Koberger's can't be Brian Koberger's because it doesn't match the year, the make, and the model. Something's wrong. It's not Brian Koberger's car. You did some fuckery. And that's what a lot of people think, and kind of what I think as well. And by the way, as an aside, real quick, I don't know if you know this. Not everybody's heard this. I did a FOIA request to the federal government, FBI, about asking who did the analysis of suspect vehicle 1 and determined that it was a 2011 to 13 Elantra. It is in the public records. We kind of know who that is. And furthermore, I asked them, how did they then revise it to be a 2015 to 16 Elantra? And can you show in your documents where it is you discussed the fog light issue, that the cars in that range don't have fog lights? And how did you address that and determine that it was still his vehicle? The response I got from the FBI was extremely interesting. It basically said, I was kind of shocked at the wording. The wording basically said, we acknowledge that we have the information that you're asking. However, we won't give it to you. The reason we won't give it to you was super interesting. And they said in the letter, this is blanket response. Everybody gets the same response regardless of what you're asking on. So they're kind of hiding whether or not it is because of these readings, but they said, look, we're not going to give you this information. And here are some of the blanket reasons why we wouldn't give it to you without telling you exactly which one it was, of which there were several comments about we wouldn't give it to you if it involves a confidential informant, somebody in witness protection, and things like this. And so they listed that as one of the reasons that could have been the reasons why, yes, we have the information you're asking for, but we will not show it to you because it may fall under one of these broad categories, of which we won't admit which one it is, because that's tipping our hat and telling you something that you shouldn't know, like maybe Brian Koberger was a confidential informant, or maybe it's just protecting the identity of somebody in the house that was a confidential informant. And that one's more likely. We actually heard a police officer on body camera, again, recently say, recent released body cam footage from an officer saying, I don't know if you know this already, but one of the victims in that house was a confidential informant. Actually, he said CI. One of the victims in the house was a CI. It was a huge bombshell. We had speculated for a long time that, yes, indeed, one of the victims was a CI. And what does that mean? That means somebody was working with the police officers to rat on people about drugs or whatever, and that could have gotten the whole house killed. It could have been a hit, killing the CI who was working and ratting to the cops. But that's not the story that Brian Koberger fits into, so we just didn't get to hear about that. Thanks for asking. Jonas Spear 4710. Listening to Pav makes me want to throw hands. Not with him, just in general. So look, Pav J. Embry was feisty in the video that I saw today. And by the time you're watching this video, it'll be a day or two ago, because I'm actually going to schedule it for, I think, Monday morning, and I'm recording this on Saturday night. So it'll be a couple days before maybe you see this. But he was feisty in that thing. And he literally said, I dare you to say that shit to my face. And he was threatening to punch somebody in the face if you got in his face and said anything that he didn't like. I dare you to fucking say it. I dare you to say it. And some people, like this individual, is like, oh, he's getting me in that piss and vinegar thing. I just want to throw some hands with somebody. Fight. So I get it. Not necessarily with Pav, you're saying, but just he's making me want to fight people, because he's got like, I dare you to come at me. I'll fight you. I don't know. I get it a little bit, but nonviolence. Let's practice nonviolence. Let's also remind you that you don't win arguments by fistfights. By the way, that was one of the things, as a side tangent, I didn't think I was going to do this, but I'm going to do it now. Pavorotti did digress and say that in the old days, you would argue until it finally in the argument what might end in, you want to fight about it? And I don't want to know what his point was, because at the point that you have to fist fight for something, you haven't proven any side right. Who kicks whose ass does not determine who's right. So what the fuck does you want to fight about it do for resolving the conflict? It doesn't. So all you proved is who's better at fighting, not whose position was correct. Anyways, I don't know what the point was of that, but for what it's worth, it was there. Firebox 133 says, I may not agree with some things Pav says, but I give the man much credit for the work he puts in. I respect that. And we do as well. We do as well at the Devil's Advocates. Almost everybody on my panel respects Pavorotti, Jay Embry, whether he respects us back or not. And I don't know that he doesn't. In the past, he's actually said to me, not to me directly, but in comments that I've left or whatever for him and responded to, or on Birdie's show, he told in the comments that he likes Birdie and I. So he said positive things about me, and I've never heard him say negative things about me. But he may not like me based on that rant I heard today. Pavorotti was ranting about douchebag creators that just say things that are incorrect, and he's tired of it. Am I lumped into with that? I don't know, because he didn't make it clear who he was complaining about. He did have one person he made it clear he was talking about, but did he lump me in? I don't know if he lumped me in with guys that say shit just to have something to talk about. But anyways, even if he did say that, even if he did, Jay Embry is very, very smart guy and very good, and puts things together for people in a way that they can understand. So I have nothing but respect for him. I think he's wrong from time to time. No big deal. I can still like the guy and respect what he does and have him and be disagreeing with some of his conclusions. Not a big deal. Hemisphere 7156 says, me and Dago spoke earlier about it. He was upset with a new creator that was saying Maddie was attacked in audio. So yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the user. It's a new account on YouTube, True Crime Forensics, I think is what it's called. He's a new channel, only up for a couple of weeks, and already has 3,000 subscribers in like 2 weeks or a week or whatever. I can't remember. It's super fast growth. And his videos are making the rounds on every YouTube channel that covers Idaho 4. Everybody seems to know this guy instantly in days of him posting, and are sharing his videos and his video analysis as he works through a software that he created called Sherlock. And Pav called him out. Pav called him out on his video today when he was ranting about clickbaiting type people, saying that this guy is clickbaiting you. He didn't create any new software. He showed the reasons why he doesn't think the guy's actually created software. He's using a well-known software program and lying to you, making it sound like it was something he created when it wasn't. And that has made Pavorotti lose respect for the guy. But yet everyone in the YouTube land, in Idaho 4, seems to be having to talk about this guy's analysis, of which he said, here is when Maddie got killed at 2:27 in the morning or whatever. You can hear somebody say, get off Maddie, and then you hear her scream. That's her being killed. It's there plain as day. Now everybody knows for a fact it happened. I also take issues with that. I don't hear, and a lot of people talked about this in depth in the chat. I don't hear get off Maddie or whatever the case may be. It's super muddy audio. When he cleaned it up, it didn't make it any better for me. It's super muddy audio. And yet people are now saying 100% that was Maddie because this guy said so. Pavarotti's kind of angry about that. I'm a little less angry than him at it. It's okay for me, especially if a creator wants to say, this is what I think it says. That's not what he did, though. He kind of said, this is proof. that this is what happened. That's the part that I take issue as well, is the approach of this is proof. And again, I'm not talking shit about this creator. I'm just saying that I disagree with that tactic of saying we now know Maddie was killed because I edited an enhanced audio that a good portion of my audience says I don't hear what that guy heard. But now he's saying this is undeniable. You just heard it. So what does that leave us in the community? If we don't hear it, what does that leave us? It makes it sound like we're idiots, that we're just shamefully ignoring what's obviously there because you just told us that it's plain as day. Everyone hears it now and it's there. So are we liars now if we tell you we don't agree with what you heard? That's the problem I have. And I don't know if that user is saying that, but that's the logic path I think that spun Pavorotti up, and the one that spun me up a little bit, but less so. Troubled Ocean adds in, she's been a longtime viewer of our show, and I love having conversations with Troubled Oceans. I have learned so much from Glitch DNA Lab. I highly recommend her channel. I've heard this before. I've heard it several times. I wished I had more time to watch that channel as well, but I will tell you this about Troubled Ocean. I've gotten to know her and her education and her thinking process. She's a super bright woman. She's very well educated. If she tells you that this is a good channel to watch, it means it. So I believe I think I've subscribed to Glitch DNA Lab. If I haven't, I will. You as well should go do that, because I can't speak on Glitch DNA Lab's behalf, but I can on Troubled Ocean's behalf. She's a bright woman, and if she tells you that's a great channel, it's a great channel. Go check it out. Gen 7S says one thing that is an issue is any law enforcement agency with contractual obligations to labs. Othram is contracted out. Money is involved. That is a huge initiative to mislead and force findings, etc. Yes, 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 and 1,000% yes. Othram Labs has a vested interest in making the money that they get paid for their contract worth the money. So when they're said, hey, look, we're having problems getting a suspect in this case, what are we paying you for? Then they come back with a hit and say, here's the guy, go for him. One could argue there's a financial incentive. In fact, a massive financial incentive that if you make yourself worthless and you don't break any cases and you can't provide any information, then what are we paying you for? Maybe we shouldn't contract out with that. So one can argue it is in the lab's best interest to give something to law enforcement they can use, because that's how you keep the contract going. So great, great point. Follow the money, I always say. All right, KS Jessen Art. Because the factory was in Pennsylvania. Now that sounds awfully out of context, so let me break it down for you. We had a long discussion about the DNA of Bryan Kohberger on the knife sheath, and one of the things that 1-1 was pointing out, and it was very long and a little complex and a little hard to follow. And so to 1-1's credit, the science is a little hard to follow, and the fuckery in that case is a little hard to follow. So I don't blame him for having a hard time kind of laying it out in a way that makes perfect sense. But the key takeaway that we're talking about in this comment is that what 1-1 was talking about is how Bryan Kohberger's name got associated with the knife sheath. Othram Labs developed the DNA on the knife sheath, not to Bryan Kohberger, but to 4 potential brothers in the Pennsylvania area, none of which was Bryan Kohberger. So how the fuck did it get to Bryan Kohberger? How did it get to Pennsylvania? How did they get names to Pennsylvania? Well, how you get to Pennsylvania in part is we found out K-bar knives, the famous K-bar knife sheath, that is the K-bar knife, and whether or not the knife sheath. Now here's the kicker. K-bar knives apparently are quality checked in Pennsylvania near Bryan Kohberger's place, within, I think, an hour and something. I can't remember what they said the exact distance was, but somewhat close by to the Kohbergers is a plant where they do quality checking on K-bars before they're shipped out. So literally the last person who would have touched the knife could have been, before it went to its intended receiver, is somebody who works in Pennsylvania at the lab doing quality check. So therefore, did the DNA hit to somebody in Pennsylvania, 4 brothers in Pennsylvania? Could it have been somebody that was quality checking in that area? And by their whole, they literally said, it didn't lead to Kohberger's family tree. They worked up from that family tree over and back down to Bryan Kohberger. I would argue, if you listen carefully to what they're saying, they already knew who they wanted to get to. They just needed to figure out a way to get there to him. So what they did is they took the DNA to somebody in Pennsylvania, worked up the family tree till they found a common ancestor, moved over, and then back down the family tree to the person they want to say, look, we've made a connection to this guy. Now we can go after his DNA and do further analysis and continue to cement the idea that it was Bryan Kohberger all along. Question becomes, was the DNA on the knife sheath that was, by the way, the size of a grain of sand or less than the size of a grain of sand, imperceptible to the human eye, really tiny, tiny, tiny speck on the knife snap or the knife strap? The story changes daily, it seems like. Was that just simply potentially somebody in Pennsylvania that lived kind of near Bryan Kohberger, and that they're not telling you that that's what they mean by they worked up a family tree and got it to Bryan Kohberger because it was somewhere near Bryan Kohberger? What? Anyways, that was the discussion that we had. More would come out on that later. I think there's another comment pinned that we're going to talk about, but we're not going to get into the details of that. I'm not ready to present the argument, and it was one's big thing that he wanted to show. So I'd like to maybe give him the chance to present it to you. Maybe I'll present it if he tells me, hey, you're good at telling people, maybe you can present it, and maybe I will. But for now, I'm going to give him the chance to do it himself later on one of our shows or something. Beach Babe 0614. I think we've had that user's comment before. It's a whopping 5 degrees in New Jersey right now. This should have been in the generic section. Apparently, I put this in the Idaho 4, but because it really should have been in the general. I have general comments and I have Idaho 4. Somehow I let this get into my Idaho 4 pack. But yes, thanks again for telling us that it's called. I think we had another person say. So anyways, maybe I duplicated this and I just screwed up. Maybe I'll have to cut this out. NRSR CHD. I feel like Nurse Rashad. I don't know. I don't know what that's supposed to be. I'm seeing it as Nurse Rashad. Nurse Rich. I don't know. NRSRCHD. I have a question. Is the knife listed as K bar, KA bar, or K bar as in K hyphen bar? And why does that matter? It's funny because when I saw this user's comment, I thought, what the hell does that even mean? And so I had to look it up. So let me explain a little. I love this. I love this question because you gave me the opportunity to educate myself, and now I'm going to educate the channel. All right. K bar, K hyphen bar, also sometimes known as KA hyphen bar. There's a difference between the two. In a way, listen carefully. This is a cool educational moment because the person asked, maybe it makes a difference if it was a K bar, K hyphen bar, or KA hyphen bar. What's the difference? K bar, just K hyphen bar, is a generic nickname that people use for a certain style of knife. Usually means a large fixed blade fighting utility knife, often with a leather handle, clip-mounted blade guard, etc. People call any similar knife a K-bar, even if it's not that by that brand. KA bar with the dash, KA bar is the actual brand. American Knife Company, founded in the 1800s, was famous for USMC fighting utility knife used since World War II. The knives are the original K hyphen bar that everyone copies. So there's a lot of K-bar knives. It's like the most common selling knife, I think, out there, the K-bar knife. And it was used in the military, and then everybody started copying it. Now, where did the name KA-bar come from? Cool trivia moment. Thank you for doing this for us so I can have this moment to educate myself and the channel. KA-bar came from a broken phrase in the 1900s letter describing a knife used to kill a bear. Kill a bear, kill a K-A bear, kill a bear. The company adopted it as their brand name. All K-bar, kill a bear knives are all KA bars knives are K hyphen bars. Listen to this. All KA hyphen bar knives are K hyphen bar knives, but not all K hyphen bar knives are KA hyphen bar knives. Confused yet? I hope that you understand. If someone says a K-bar knife, they might mean a real KA hyphen BAR. Or they might just mean a knife that's in the style of K-bar knives. So there you go. Education on the Devil's Advocates. Thanks a lot. KDips 18. Plus, BK going stargazing is a weak alibi, in my opinion. There's no way he can prove that, hence why they've not even bothered saying that it was his alibi, in my opinion. Well, first of all, actually, they did say it was his alibi. It was the prosecution that laughed it off and said it was a joke of an alibi. But the defense actually did say it was alibi. And it's not a weak alibi as you think. It's not as much of a weak alibi. In fact, there's a massive, massive amount of supporting evidence and fuckery that I'll just try to lay out like this. One, Kohberger apparently had a history of going stargazing. That is not uncommon. Other people that he may have known also were into stargazing. So that would be a thing. It was something that he did. Also, that night, it is true, and I have confirmed in multiple sources, there was a meteor shower that night at approximately 4-ish in the morning, the critical time that we say the murders were happening. Brian Kohberger may have actually done exactly what he said, going out to see the meteor shower, which, by the way, at Wawaway Park, which is the opposite direction from Moscow, Idaho, there's apparently a better way to view it. Now, that part's coming from a local in the area, Twiz, who's been on the show before, and many of you know who Twiz is in this community. Twiz stated, look, I live in the area. I've been down to Wawaway Park at night, even on a cloudy night, and it's an area where the clouds kind of break commonly. So it's a place where you can see on a cloudy night something like a meteor shower. So it's not completely, now I'm going by his take on that, but what I'm saying is there are, first of all, even if it was a partly cloudy night, that doesn't mean that he's a major celestial event for a stargazer, like a meteor shower, isn't something you might attempt to at least go watch, especially since Brian Kohberger liked to go night driving. It's something he liked to do. It was part of his habit, not because he's going out slaughtering kids all the time. It's because it was something he had a habit of doing. That's something they don't want to point out to you. It was a habit of his to do those kind of things. So if he's a stargazer and he doesn't mind going for a drive in the middle of the night because he likes driving at night anyways, why wouldn't he take a chance at seeing if maybe he can see that meteor shower in a break of the clouds down below Wawaway Park, which doesn't have cell service, by the way. And when you head that direction, you lose cell service, and which is exactly what the prosecution told us. Brian Kohberger's phone loses connection to the cell service at a certain time. The defense said Brian Kohberger was heading to Wawaway Park, and that's why he lost cell service. The prosecution tried to lie about 7 minutes of time. Listen, if you haven't heard this before, you need to fucking get educated ASAP. And Taylor said over and over again, you lied about when his phone lost connection to the server, to the tower. You know it was 7 minutes later than when you told us. And the reason why they lied about the 7-minute gap is because if you followed Kohberger's phone for another 7 minutes, they would prove definitively Kohberger was heading away from Moscow to Wawaway Park. But they lied about it and told you it ended sooner than it did because that still placed him in Pullman, not heading away to a Wawaway Park. Do the fucking reading on the paperwork. That's the argument, and it's stronger than you think. It is not as weak of an alibi. And last thing I'll say about that, I have confirmed Boise, Idaho saw, and it lit up the town of Boise, Idaho when a meteor went over at 4 something in the morning, just like it was reported there was a celestial event. Boise saw it. I think it's caught on camera. Maybe we'll play it sometime so you can see it. I know that if you're a person who's a guilter and you think it's a weak alibi that he went stargazing that night, you won't be convinced, you won't give a shit that it actually got witnessed in Boise because it was a cloudy night, and you're just going to go with, that's just the dumbest alibi I've ever seen. But you know what? It might actually have been true. Thanks for asking. Yvonne Poole, 141. People forget Brian didn't have to prove anything. They had to prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my God, I love people who understand how the legal system works. People should never forget. It wasn't Brian Kohberger's job to fucking convince you he didn't kill people. It was their job to prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that Brian Kohberger is the only one who could have killed them. That's what their burden of proof was. And they did not. They never got to that point. That would have had to have been proven in a trial, of which we were robbed of the trial because of a plea deal. And I know some of you say that's because Brian Kohberger did it and he finally admitted that he did it, so there's no need for a trial. Well, you can certainly go with that. And it's a possibility. It is a possibility that Brian Kohberger admitted he was guilty because he was guilty. That's what he said. I'm guilty because I am guilty. That was the actual wording of the plea deal. Are you saying you're guilty because you are guilty? Yes, he had to agree to that. So for some of you, that puts it to bed. He said, I'm guilty because I am guilty, not because I'm forced into it. However, You need to also educate yourself. Get a copy of Framed by John Grisham and there's another author they wrote it with, and I'm ashamed to not remember the name. I always remember Grisham's name. Framed. Read it. Read how people how plead guilty to things they didn't do. How many times it happens. Just from some examples from that book. Happens all the time. Get educated about why it happens. Once again, question. Anyone to comment on Pav's opinion, I think is what it meant, about Maddie's phone in her room and the blood. Now, that is a long discussion, and we did talk about it that night. So let me try to be briefer here, and you can watch the replay if you want to get the longer discussion, or watch Pav's video or whatever. The gist of it is this. He was basically taking exception to a creator who said Maddie was killed earlier in the night than 3-something in the morning. And Pav took exception to it because of a crime scene photo that showed Maddie's phone covered in blood, apparently. And we saw the picture and we've looked at it and talked about it. There's blood spatter around the phone and across the face of the phone. So we have stated on this case, and it's going to get long, or on this channel, and it's going to get long. So I'll try to be brief. Like I told you, it was going to be brief, but it's a long discussion to do it right. That cell phone activity is not proof of life. That the phone had some activity is not proof of life. However, Pavorotti's point was, if you're going to suggest that they died earlier in the night, like one creator was saying, that Maddie was, here's the thing, again, True Crime Forensics, I think, said Maddie definitively was killed at 2:27. I disagree with that user's conclusion. I don't believe Maddie necessarily was killed. In fact, I don't think she was killed at 2:27, but that's what the user said. Maddie was killed at 2:27. Pop's real bitch was, can't be, because Maddie was on her phone sometime around 3 o'clock in the morning and it's covered in blood. And if somebody manipulated her phone after she died at 2:27, follow this logic. If she died at 2:27, as this user was saying, Maddie was killed at 2:27, then how is she still texting people at 3 o'clock in the morning? Here's the problem. If that phone's got blood all over the face of it, how could somebody pretend that she's alive, making text messages and calls or whatever from her phone, when they would have to then touch that phone and manipulate the face that has blood all over it and smear blood around or whatever? So he's logicking through it. That blood had to get on the phone while she was still alive. She was still alive at 3 o'clock in the morning. Therefore, that she had to be killed after. That user, he's going to say, is an idiot. She couldn't have died at 2:27 because she was on her phone at 3-something in the morning. And we know it wasn't manipulated by somebody else because there would be fingerprints in the blood on the phone. So it obviously, anyways, hope you follow the logic, and thank you for paying attention. F off again says, I love F off. F off says, I thought Pav's comment on Maddie's phone was genius. What do you think? Yes, Pavorotti caught a little detail. The devil's in the details. I say this all the time. He caught a little detail that a lot of people missed. It was a brilliant look. That's why that guy's super smart. That's why he's got a super big following. That's why people like his shit. Some people don't like some of the arrogancy that comes with it, and that's fine. That's a choice of your favorite creator, but the guy is super fucking smart. And he caught a super good thing. So 100%, I do agree. It was a genius catch. Nice job. Another one from Jeff H. said that she commented about the bathroom thing with her friend at 4 a.m., even though 316 is Xana's official TikTok from law enforcement. Let's set aside Jeff H. for a minute. Let's set aside Jeff H. The point being is that, once again, every time we hear something and we think we understand what the timeline is, law enforcement changes things. Oh, well, all the kids were sleeping. Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe they were all on their phones talking. Maybe Dylan actually said she heard Maddie awake at 4-something in the morning and she wasn't sleeping, like they told us for years. Everybody was sleeping. Everybody was sleeping. Okay, now as more details comes out, that's not true. So many things in this case has turned out not to be true. One of which is the continual statement that Xana, fuck, where did they come up with Anna? That Xana was on her phone at 4:12 in the morning on Twitter or X, right? And that she made some kind of statement on there about the bathroom, and that was the phone activity. What has come out now, again, allegedly, I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but I keep hearing it all the time, and I need to see it for the vetting, is that the records actually state that text happened at 3:16. So Xana wasn't leaving that text at 4 something in the morning, and she may not have even been on her phone at 4 something in the morning. As somebody said, if her phone was just on laying there and it was already still active to the thing, that could be another thing. So there's a lot of excuses for it. The point being is that, once again, if law enforcement told us that, hey, she texted at 4:12 in the morning and it was really 3:16, as documents now start to show, it wouldn't surprise me, because there's fuckery, and they constantly change the narrative of what happened all the time. And it's getting old. Karen Folkwes, 4987. Pav says the screams are party screams. I cannot agree with this. What we're talking about, again, is the video footage at 2:27 in the morning when you hear a horrific scream. Many people have said everything in the world other than people are being harmed. That's a cat getting laid at 2:27 that you hear. That's what it is. Somebody else will say it's a male screaming, not a female. It's partying. Somebody even said it's a tickle party. My kids tickle each other all the time. That's the sound of somebody laughing till they want to cry. My God. Here's the thing. You can hear whatever you want to hear. But I do agree with Karen Folkwes, 4987. Those screams are not party screams. Pav says it is party screams. Pav is adamant that the killings happened when they said it did, and the hardest part, and I don't want to misquote Pavorotti, because I haven't heard him enough say it for me to get his wording down. But many people are saying Pavorotti is doubling down somehow now on Dylan always told the truth, that what she said was true, and many of us can't go there. We don't view Dylan's story as reputable or consistent. But all of a sudden, apparently, people are telling me Pavarotti is doubling down. Dylan told the truth all along, and we just didn't pay attention. Those murders happened after 4 o'clock in the morning, and so therefore, the scream that you hear has to be anything other than murder and torture, because we know Dylan told the truth. I don't know what to say about that. All right, Living Dead Girl ChRiStl sounds like Pav has a problem with other people having opinions and thinks he knows it all. That is the biggest complaint, if I have, with Pavorotti and or his group. And again, I like the guy. I hope he doesn't take offense at this. If he hears it, he probably won't. He, like me, probably has a lot more to do than to watch other people's content. But you'll, of course, tell him and it'll probably get back to him as DA's shitting all over him, and that's not what's happening. But let me clarify it. Yes, one of the problems I have is it does feel a little at times with Pavorotti that when he goes on a rant of, I'm not going to put up with people telling absolute falsehoods and I want nothing to do with them, that what that ends up sounding like is, if you think something happened that is different than what I think happened, you're a liar, and I won't have anything to do with you. So at the end of the day, it does start to feel a little bit like, if we don't agree with your theory, that means we're idiots or morons or whatever the names. And that's the problem I have, because I feel like we should treat each other with respect. We should understand that I may not agree with your conclusions and you may not agree with my conclusions and all those good things, but we should understand that we're both working towards the same common goal. And maybe at the end of the day, he really does that. Sometimes I think Pavorotti gets spun up about a particular person and then maybe overgeneralizes. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he thinks everyone's an idiot that doesn't think the same thing that he does. I don't know. Which, again, the biggest complaint I have is that sometimes Pavorotti changes his mind about things. So is it okay for him to say something wrong and then change his mind, but it's not okay for other people to say something wrong and change their mind? I don't know. Resist the Woke says, Lee, referring to Pav, we're going to talk a lot about Pav. Holy crap. Lee, referring to Pav, could you or someone on the panel please explain why the touch DNA on the knife sheath was not BK's? I listened to the video numerous times, but still don't understand it. I didn't hear Pav's argument about why the DNA is definitively not Brian Koberger's. This was the same thing that 1-1 on our show is starting to show you on this particular episode on 2/7/2026, was that the DNA was not definitively Brian Koberger's, even though they told you it was definitively Brian Koberger's. They misled you. Apparently, Pav talked about it as well. I didn't see Pav's argument. I also didn't see all of 1-1's argument, and I would have to read it myself and find a way to present it. One of the things I think I'm pretty good at is explaining to people in simple terms, and until I can wrap my head around explaining it, I probably won't even attempt it. So I'm sorry, I can't really answer that too much other than to say, yeah, it's a lot of people who are smart. A lot of people who are smart are saying, oh, it's total fuckery. And I think that's probably correct. Pamela Smith, 6221. I was watching a different channel today who was claiming the voices were certain people. So I'm glad that you're addressing it. We do not know the audio is legit. Correct, correct, correct. I will say this. The audio that Jules obtained, the one that where a lot of us are talking about and users are breaking down and try to isolate the sound and make it better and better. If you were to say that you don't know that audio is legit, that audio is legit. The muddied audio that came straight from Moscow Police Department, that is legit from them. They themselves may have tampered with that audio. So keep that in mind. And that's true. There's evidence. There's good reasons to think that they have manipulated the audio, but the audio itself came straight from the horse's mouth. That was what the prosecution was going to use, was that particular audio. So that audio is legit. And I will say one other thing about that. On the Linda Lane camera footage, if you listen enough times to the Jules version, that's very loud and you can hear it really clear, and then go watch the Linda Lane footage and sync up the times so that you can see the times, you will hear a lot of those same sounds and screams from a different camera. You just have to listen to the certain pitch. When it hits certain pitch levels, you're like, oh, that's the same. It's there. So I have every reason to believe the audio is legit. I know that some users, and maybe I even have a pinned comment to talk about before we finish today, said that, look, I'm never going to trust enhanced audios anymore after somebody faked an audio. Yeah, somebody faked an audio and made a lot of people look like idiots. I would argue, be careful, people, about the people who isolate audio and tell you this is what it says definitively, and then you go forth and repeat that over and over again. Be careful. Be careful. The mind plays tricks on us. I think we're going to talk about that in a minute too. So I would say this. The audio is legit. What you hear on that, however, is a matter of subjective interpretation, because they've muddied the audio, I believe, or at least the audio is muddy, and attempts to isolate it aren't helping all that much, in my opinion. It's called pareidolia, and that's what I was just talking about. Pareidolia, as I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is basically the mind's desire to create meaning out of things that it sees. I think it's the same process that you see a face in the bark of a tree, or you see a turtle in the clouds, or a dragon in the clouds. Your mind is looking continually to make sense of the world around it. And so it tends to put meaning to things that sometimes have no meaning whatsoever. The one would argue in pareidolia that the clouds do not take the shape of a dragon. You're just interpreting it that way because your mind is designed to look for patterns. And so there's no meaning, rhyme, or reason to those clouds. Your mind put something there that wasn't there. The same kind of phenomena is happening with these audios, where people who have already decided, they know who the key players are, Ethan, Xana, Maddie, Dylan, whatever. And so when they listen to it, their mind is looking to seek meaning out of the muddied audio. And I just heard Xana's name. But you're already predisposed to hear it because you're already thinking and trying to make meaning out of the events of that night. And so you might indeed hear somebody's name, but it might not be anything more than pareidolia, which is your brain trying to interpret what it's hearing. And so it creates a story, because that's the way our brains are designed to work. And we had a big moment where we explained that on camera, and I think we might have a pin about it. Patty Burnett, 1142. Do you think Bill Thompson knows BK is innocent and was surprised by his plea deal? Seemed he's trying to cover his arse. All right. Yeah, there is a part of me for sure that thinks, and he flat out said it, Bill Thompson said, they were surprised with the plea deal. So when you ask, do you think Bill Thompson was surprised by the plea deal? He literally said they were surprised by the plea deal. Brian Koberger, and he said this almost exact words. Brian Koberger has maintained all this time his factual innocence, and we were surprised when he entered a plea. And yes, I think that tells you a lot. Good catch on your part, because your gut, I think, is telling you the same thing that it told me. Bill Thompson's wording, I thought, was very significant. A lot of people disagree with me, but since you've mentioned it, I'm going to mention it as well. His statement that Brian Koberger has always maintained his factual innocence. was a big statement to me that many think that you're reading something into it. Factual innocent means the facts in the case will prove that's not true. I may have been there as a possibility. I may have been involved as a possibility. I may have known who did it as a possibility, but the facts will bear that I wasn't in the house. And so therefore I'm factually innocent. And that's what I think Bill Thompson was saying. Brian Koberger has always maintained his factual innocence. There is no evidence of him at the house because he never went in, and he knows he never went in. Now, maybe he was involved in some way. That's the argument here. Maybe he knew he was involved, but he was factually innocent because he knew he never went into the house. So therefore, the facts will prove, in his opinion, that he wasn't there. Whether you think you can tie him to the crime scene some other way or not, he wasn't there. The facts will prove it. That's what I think it meant when he said Brian Koberger has maintained his factual innocent. And yes, Bill Thompson said that he was surprised by the plea deal. And Bill Thompson took that plea deal instantly without asking Brian Koberger to explain himself or to provide any details that proves that only the killer would know it. He didn't give a shit. Close, settle. We didn't expect him to fucking plea. Take the plea. And that's exactly what they did. It's a lot of coverage today. Are you talking about knife wound experiments? All right. I'm glad this is at the end because it's a little dicey. And so if you stayed this far, I guess you get what you deserve. A user came on, I think she was called the Maven. It was her username. A user came on screen and shared with us an experiment that she's able to do from Cambodia. I think she's a California person who relocated to Cambodia. She's in Cambodia now. And her and her son have devised a potential experiment they want to run. This experiment is going to sound a little dicey. And so I'm going to word it in a less dicey way than it was presented. And I got nervous the way it was being presented. And we will take care of this carefully. But the gist of it is that she wanted to get a already deceased pig that you can buy from like a butcher or whatever, or so an already deceased pig, full carcass, and then try to recreate the number of stab wounds because pigs are very similar to human flesh. So this is something a forensics person might actually do, or if they were going to trial, somebody might have tried to practice it. This is something that science might actually try to replicate. Can you stab somebody? Literally, can you stab somebody 157 times in 8 minutes or 9 minutes or whatever? How long does it take if you're right at it and going at it and whatever? If you're a physically fit male individual with a certain relative strength and whatever, how exhausting would it be? How quick can you get it done? Can you do it in the time? And it's just a thought experiment. Can it be done? And so this user said, the Maven said, look, my son has got a thinness to him and is a scrapper, has been a fighter his whole life. So he's good at that kind of thing. And he's offered, look, you can time me. I'll let's get a carcass that simulates as close as possible to a human body. And then we'll practice that and see if how fast we can do those. And again, recreate some time for walking down the stairs. So stab for a certain number of stabs, check it out with the actual report, then factor in a little bit of time for walking down the stairs, and then the other individuals down below by the number of stabs. And can it be done? Can it physically be done? Do our own little timing run, as they say. Some of you are going to be weirded out by that experiment. We have asked that if they do that experiment, and we might help them financially to purchase this carcass, not a live animal. I freaked out when I thought they were talking about actually killing a pig and stabbing it to death and bleeding it out and what. I was like, no, none of that creepy shit. This is just for wound analysis to see if you can actually create that many physical stab wounds with something that's close to a human as we can get without having a human cadaver to do it with, because you can't do that. And so we said, yeah, that's a really good experiment. And if you do it, you should probably record it. And I know that a lot of people will not want to watch that. However, we are considering being very, very careful with how we do that. And a discussion was taking place. And I think it's this next comment from our mod, Amanda B, you can show it on Discord. So if we do back this experiment and help obtain that and work it out and get and get them to record it and show it. Because I said, look, if you're going to do this experiment, it's going to have to be more than you just told us it can be done. The people who need to see it, so they can be like, I saw how it was conducted. Here's where you did a flaw in your methodology. We need to see the process, so you need to record it. And while I myself might have a hard time watching it, I don't know. I mean, I'm an animal lover, but the animal will already be deceased, so there's that at least. But it still might creep my ass out. It might creep me out, especially it could be triggering. It's probably triggering for some people to even hear this, so I apologize for that. But we may do that, and if we do it, we will not show it on YouTube. We will not show it to the public. We will find something like what Amanda said, which is airing it on Discord in a private area where only people who basically, for the lack of a better word, sign a waiver. Now, we won't charge, but somebody to basically say, look, I want to see this, and I'm willing to take the trigger warning if it bothers me seeing it. And we'll make sure you understand what it is and what it isn't and what you're asking to see, so that it's full disclosure before you do so. So if we do that, we're considering it. There's a part of me that thinks that it might have an ick factor to it, but I think a lot of people are like, that's a really good experiment. I'd like to see the results on that. So we might do it for scientific. We'll see. Again, I won't clickbait this shit, and I'm not going to even talk about it. I'm not going to put it on the thumbnail. I'm not going to advertise that we're talking about it at the end. If you stayed to the end, you got to hear it. That's how that works. Have a great day, everyone. I will try to keep up while I'm on vacation with watching my panel on the nights that I can't make it, and answer questions like this in the Fireside chat. Hope you enjoy this format. If you did, please make sure that you let me know you like or love the Fireside chat, so that you can encourage me to keep doing it, because it takes a lot of time and effort to put this together. Thanks.